Good afternoon, good evening, good day, happy weekend, happy Friday to some, and happy Friday to all. For some people, I think it's early Saturday. Um, want to say thank you for tuning into SKTV. Welcome to this show. As you can see on your screens, mental health and wellness. Um, we are here to talk today about intimacy and isolation. We want to welcome all of you. We are sorry that we're a few minutes late. We had a technical glitch, so we had to make sure we get the right people to fix the technical issue we had. So that prompted the lateness. But we want to say thanks to all of you for tuning in. Today, we are having a conversation about mental health and wellness. A very interesting, important, and intriguing conversation today. We have a lot to talk about, a lot to uncover, and we will go as slow as we can, as easy as we can, just to ensure that we have the necessary conversation here today. Um, Again, we want to welcome all of you to the show. Welcome, welcome, and welcome. Let's share the show. Let's invite other people. We'll make some disclaimer here really quick before we get into the conversation. Let's make some disclaimer here. Let's make some disclaimer as we move forward with the show. First disclaimer we want to make here to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, those of you watching from around the world, from Liberia, from Europe, Asia, and other parts of Africa. We not forgetting about those in the Americas or other parts of the world. Want to say welcome, 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 and welcome. Um, Disclaimer is this is meant for teaching purposes, educational purposes. It is not meant for, it's not a counseling session. We want to be sure that we put that disclaimer out there. The second thing also, if you ever choose to call in or you are selected as a participant to come onto the show, we like to make sure that we let you know that whatever information you would choose to give to the public, it will be at your own risk or discretion because we do not guarantee your privacy once your information is out in public. Wanted you to know that as well. Um, we'd also want you to know that we will have no political talk on this show. This is not politics time. We're strictly, forcefully, and respectfully restricted to just mental health and wellness, especially on the topic that we're dealing with for that day. So, yes. So, please, if you have any other question or any other concern, what about politics, you wait when SKTV is discussing politics. You can come and write, talk, or say political things. For now, we still focus with mental health and wellness. So, we want to ask you to please share the show. Another thing again is we will offer the time for you to contribute at some point, but we do not get into back and forth. We do not get into drama. We do not get into noise. We stay focused on the topic. And if you have a disagreement, please be respectful. We do not get into insults, curse words, whether in a light feed or when you come on. No, we don't. It is solely for learning purposes. solely for learning purposes. So please, let's share the show, and we can go from there. If you have any question, any concern, once the time comes for you to make your contribution, you feel free to do so. Today is April 1st. Everything that is written here, everything I said here is not April Fool. I just want to be clear on that disclaimer. No April Fool yet. Factual information, and we go. But let's share the show. Help us to share the show as we play one or two songs before we get into the show. Just before we get into sharing the show, we at SKTV would like to use this opportunity and to extend our profound not gratitude, sympathy with the family, children, loved ones, friends of Liberians that have lost their lives, most recently in Liberia, and also here in the US. Our sympathy and our heart goes on. We are in prayers with the family and so forth. Thank you, and help us share the show and the information here. Let's invite other people. Today promised to be very interesting as well. We're moving to another stage of the human growth and development. Let me bring this up as we get prepared to share the show. Thank you so much. give me one more second because I was in this sharing. Sorry, I was sharing different groups. Give me just one more second, please. And we'll dive straight into the topic once we get back. Please and please. Thank you for your patience.
You don't even know my story. You don't even know your story, oh yeah. Oh yeah, you know on the beat, I be a loca. So mora, you post a new car on Facebook. But I so la la, you work the butter. Bluffing and acting jealous, say you photo. My advice for you, in my way, I got to confess. Confession, you gotta confess. You must have the impression. Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing. Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing.
It's never gonna be another man trash, just another man treasure. Another man fool was another man poison. Got your code, I got into your man shaman. Got your code, I got into your man shaman. The player ain't garish, and they play you booty. Just because of impression, impression, fake impression, impression, yeah. You don't even know my story, or you want to share my glory, oh yeah. Every you my way, oh way, oh. Every oh you my way, oh way, oh. Every touch you my way, oh way, oh.
Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing. Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing. Jeje, the hammer you driving a thing to keke. This a ballin'. The thing that we talking, it must stay right here. Stop spoiling my knee. I'm living my life, oh. See, I'm living my life, oh. If you tell you, hey, oh, hey, oh. If you hold you, hey, oh, hey, oh. If you hate you, hey, oh, hey, oh. If you tell you, hey, oh. You don't even know my story. Enjoyment.
Oh my God, you're cute.
Enjoyment, no more stressing. Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing.
All right, as promised, we are back here. Again, earlier on, like I said, it's going to be a lot to discuss. There's going to be a lot to talk about today. But most importantly, I want to welcome all of you, our viewers, our listeners from around the world. Today is another edition. We ran a little late earlier. And so we would have to make up at some point for our lateness. So stay on, stick with us, stay with us, because we have a lot to cover. Like I said earlier on, when we first started the show, would have a lot to cover up on today, a lot to discuss, a lot to talk about. This is a critical stage in a critical time of our life. So we want to get into this because this would be mostly applicable to our times, our age groups, and so forth. And so this is an important stage. We've, over the past few weeks, been able to establish from growth, death, and so forth. Let me say growth, death, from birth through growth. We've been able to establish that. We've been able to establish conceptions and all of those things. We've been able to bring that to bed. in our conversation with you. And so it's important for us to navigate these different stages. Last week we talked about a different age group wherein we reminded you that during this age group, which was, when we spoke last week, was the group in which sexual desires and other things are happening. Different hormones are off, they're skyrocketing. A lot of things are going on in the heads of people, in the body of people. We talked to you about the formation of the young people, getting into what a teenager or so forth, or young adults and so forth. We talked to you about, some of the things that could be running through their heads, some of the things that could be going on in their lives. We talked to you over the past time also about the support, how parents can support, how family members can support, and so forth. So today we are moving into another stage, which is very interesting, another interesting stage of our lives. But let's get over our usual, or I would say normal recaps that we normally have, describing what mental health is. If you look on your screen, you would see the brain of a person. And it states in the middle of that, it states mental health. It talks in different cycles. You would see that it talks about stress, anxiety. It talks about emotions. It talks about depression. It talks about other psychological issues. It talks about society. It talks about coping mechanism and all of that. One of the biggest questions that's been asked is, what is mental health? And like I said, from day one, we would always go over this part to describe or to define what mental health is, what it means to be healthy mentally. Being healthy mentally simply means, according to the World Health Organization, it simply means, or is defined as the state of well-being in which individual realizes their own abilities, can cope with normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make contribution to his or her community. So when you see someone not making healthy, safe contributions to their community, when there are restrictions, when there are all these different things going on at once, that is a sign that people are either having some kind of mental health challenges or some kind of problem is going on at that time or at that stage of their lives. And these are not common. It could spark up at any point, any stage of your life. But most importantly, we've talked about some of the things, some of the precipitating factors. In other words, some of the things that can cause mental health. We'll jump into it really quick here. But just note that when you can function daily as human beings, the way we are made, we're supposed to function daily, healthy, without being under the influence of any kind of substance or so forth. So let's take, for example, if you were to tell me that before you dance to the party, because you are so shy, you have to be, you have to be drunk to do certain things, or to do things that normal humans would do, that is a sign that there is something not healthy about you or your mental state. That means you have to alter your mental state from reality into something that's not reality to make you to function. That means, in other words, you're not acting like yourself. Let me put it that way. You are not acting like yourself. So let's move on really quick, because like I said, we have a lot to talk about today. Let's move on here. Part of the question that I've also been asked over the time, is what are some of the things that could cause mental illness or could cause disturbance in your mental health? People are doing well. What are some of the things? We talked to you last time about, there is no single cause. I want to be clear on that. You can't just point on one thing and say, this is the thing that's causing, mental health problem. Because at different stages in people's life, they're faced with different challenges and different things. We have to be clear on that. There are different things going on in their lives. I know this might sound repetitive, but it's critically important that we ping this out there so that you can understand that you can't just rely on one thing at a given moment and say, this is thing. Now, let's say, for example, for some people, they could have a mental breakdown, maybe divorce. Some people losing their jobs. Some people, the epidemic. Some people, death in the family. Some people, tragedy. Some people, trauma. Some people, going through certain illnesses. Some people, not being able to provide for themselves, losing their homes and so forth. So a lot of different things could lead to mental illness. People experience different things. For some people, they're born like that. They were born with mental health issues. They're predisposition to that, or they were exposed to that at a very early age, where in family situation or so forth. That's why, it's important that I said this, and I will stress on this: when you are pregnant as a woman, you want to be careful as to not expose yourself to certain things. Also, part of the responsibility also goes on to the men. As fathers, we need not to be pre-exposing women to certain things when they're pregnant. We need not to be doing certain things. Some of you women who drink and who do other things while you're pregnant, it's unsafe. You are creating problems. So biological factors could be the cause, societal factors, and choices we make too as well. Some of the things that could cause mental health problems, drugs and alcohol, big problem. Big problem. Some of the things that could cause it, drugs and alcohols. Also, some of our things that we're exposed to in our family or in our relationships or whatever now. All of these things are factors that can lead to mental health problems or can predispose us. So when you see somebody act like or in private or whatever now, they didn't just wake up one day and just have that outburst. There's been some things working in the background to make them act the way they're acting and do the things that they're doing. And some might not want to admit, some might want to cover it up, but these are truths. These are facts, whether you admit to them or not, whether you tell us, whether you inform us about it or not. These are things that are happening behind closed doors. These are factors that would lead to, mental breakdown, mental health issues in our community. But let's move on. As always, you will see that older gentleman, Erik Erikson, who was a German-American psychologist, psychoanalyst. A lot of things he contributed. We're using some of his work today. We use some of his books, some of his writings. We use them in therapy. Some of us who have not been in therapy, I would encourage you, if you see the need, go check it out. We use some of them in therapy. One of the interesting books, one of the interesting writings from him that I really like is the identity crisis. Which at some point we're talking to that identity crisis in our lives. A different stage in our different ages. So basically, we've heard about this gentleman. You will not stop hearing about him or from him as long as we're on the show or we continue the show. You will continue to hear from him or whatever now. So we'll keep you in the loop on that. But let's move on a little faster today. We talked to you the last time about these different stages. Erik Erikson, who created them. We talked to you about these different stages of psychosocial. Some will say psychosocial, some will say human growth and development. However you want to term it. At the end of the day, it has to do with our life as humans. And so that's where we find ourselves. And it's important for us to lay these different factors and these different things down to help us. So today we are on, I think we are on the sixth stage here. We're on the sixth stage here. And I think it's important on the sixth stage for us to see that we started off on the very first stage. If you look on the table on there, you'll see that trust versus mistrust. Normally we identify that as hope. Children are very young, they don't know. We went to the second stage, autonomy versus shame and doubt. We talk about willpower, wherein your children start to want to try new things, they want to have that willpower, whatever now. We also talked about another stage, which was initiative versus guilt. We talk about the purpose. People have purposes in life. They start to identify the purpose in life. Sometimes their career and so forth. We've talked also to you about industry versus inferiority. We talk about, people start to, your purpose in life, then you want to test your competence. You want to know if you're competent to do that, whatever it is. It comes to learning experiences, whatever it is, at that age group between 6 and 12. Last week, we talked to you about identity versus role confusion. We talked about fidelity to what we told you last week. Fidelity to yourselves, understanding yourselves, identifying yourself. At this point going forward, it would be critically important for you to understand that this all bugs and surrounds you. It's about you. You have to know who you are and whatever now. You have to get to understand yourself. Self-identity is critically important now at this stage of your life. Because if and when you don't understand yourself and you don't have that self-identity, what happens is you either become pulled by other people or you become pulled into situations that you need not to even be in at that point. You start to choose what are battles, what are friends, what are relationships, and so forth. At this stage, you start to determine what you will look forward to in a relationship and so forth. You start to set expectations and all those different things. And again, I'll point this out for us to be clear before we move forward. These expectations that we are setting, they're not necessarily expectations for the next person. And that's something that we always make mistakes on. We want to set expectations for people. No, that is not true. The same thing with boundaries. When you're setting boundaries, boundaries are not set for someone. Boundaries are set for you. Well, then you implement those boundaries and make sure they're applicable to you and you are safe. And as time goes by, we explore all of these things. So setting expectations and so forth, those are your expectations. They are not necessarily the other person's expectation. And I want to be clear on that. Whether it's in relationships or how we relate to people or things we do, we must be able to understand that when we set expectations in things that we want, then we have choices to pick if people meet these expectations or they meet the criteria or whatever. Now, if someone does not meet that expectation or that criteria, and you decide, because that person will not lower the bar, that person will not change the criteria, you decide to change the criteria around for that person to suit into that expectation, it's at your own detriment, it's at your own risk, not necessarily the next person. So I give you a typical example because we're going to be talking today about intimacy and isolation. It's important for us to give you relatable examples. So let's take, for example, if you said to yourself that if your next relationship or one of the criteria for you to get in a relationship with a male or with a woman would be that person would have to have a job. That is a criteria. That is an expectation you've set for yourself. Now, if you meet someone that does not have a job, you have options of other people that have a job. But if you say, well, upon everything, the expectation I've set that this person would have a job, and you say to us, I don't care whether they have a job now or not, I'm in love. I want you to understand that from the day you decide to lower the expectation or you decide to cut down your expectation, there are consequences for it. So that means, in other words, what you are doing now, you are shifting your expectation into someone's expectation. So people have expectations, whether you like it or not, whether they tell you or not, whether they know about it themselves or not. So you are shifting now to getting into something different. Now, there are consequences to that when you make those mistakes. So that means one of the consequences could be you would have to compensate for the fact that you are adding another person onto your responsibility, and you will have to pay the price. I mean, the person does not have a job. You will have to pay for that because they are an adult, especially if they live on this side, they live in Africa, or whatever it is. You have to pay the difference. So every time you screw up or mess up with your expectation, your criteria, your goals in life, guess what happens? You have a price to pay. Not necessarily the next person or society. You have a price to pay. You will have some adjustments, some adaptation, and other things to do in your life. You will have to make up for that. That the choices you make, you always will have to make up for it. So we talked about role confusion last week, Friday. We talked about how society, friends, and other things can influence role confusion. Children can get influenced. Children can get carried away. Children can get confused, especially when they're in school, whatever it is. Even grown-ups, from peer pressure and other things. So it's important to have that firm foundation for your children and for your lives. So today, we're moving on to, it says here, young adults. Some people will say adults or whatever it is. But this age range or this age group is anywhere between 18 to 40 years old. I want you to keep that in mind. 18 to 40 years old. Think about where you are now in your life. 18 to 40 years old. Think about where you are, whether you are between the ages of 18 to 40 or you are above it. I want you to think about it now. Now you've passed all of these stages. You've gotten to this stage wherein it's called intimacy versus isolation. Sometimes this week I posted on my Facebook page. Let me go to that and I'll read a comment that was there that I posted. Let me read it really quick before we get into this stage because I think this stage is very important. Let me read it because we're getting to the next stage here. Let me post it on here. I think this stage is very, 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 it's critically important for us to understand this stage. Can you imagine? I never even shared the show on my page. That's a shame. That's a big shame from my end. But we'll share at some point after the show. So sometimes this week, I posted, I think it was 2 days ago, Wednesday or Thursday. No, it was 1 day ago, Thursday or whatever now. But here's what I posted. If I were to tell you intimacy is the most important part of your adult life, what would you say? What does intimacy mean to you? Before you respond to this question, so I said, think about it before you respond to these questions. So today, we're going to be talking about intimacy, but we also want to know intimacy versus isolation. We also want to know what intimacy is. Let me say this to you again. Intimacy is one of the most important parts of your lives, especially at this age. You would need it going this, and you would understand why you would need it. You would need it going this time of your life up until you die. You would need it. And you would understand why intimacy is critically important. You would also get to know, what is intimacy at this point. So very, very important for us to get into here. So let's get into it. What do you expect? One of the expectations in this stage is intimacy versus isolation is the 6th stage, like I said earlier, of Erik Erikson theory. It's normally been during young adulthood. You are very energetic at this point. Some people are getting out of college. Some people are getting out of high school. Some people are going to college. Some people will graduate. Some people will start getting good jobs. Some people will start getting their own place to live and so forth. So a lot of things happening at this time. So in intimacy in this time, you want to think about who you will bring in your life, who you had in your life, and what you're about to do going forward in your life. It makes a huge difference. But let's move forward, because it is part of our mental health for us to understand what to expect in this stage. So during this period, it's critical for you to develop relationships. Your relationships in this period is critical. Very, very, very critical. The relationships you develop. Let me say it again. The relationships you develop, not necessarily romantic relationships. The relationships you develop with one another or with other people, they are very important, because they could either help you resolve conflicts or they could help you form bonds. But on the other hand, also, these relationships could help bring conflicts in your life. As in my experience, as I look around on a daily basis, especially in our community, Liberian communities, or maybe to some extent, some African communities, most of the problems we get in, most of the situations and the things people get in are not necessarily their own problems. They're problems that are brought on from relationships that they have with other people, whether they're your best friend, whether they're the crew you decided to be part of, whether they're the clique you want to be part of, whether they're the group you think you support, whether they're the people you think you support, whether the agendas you think you support, or just the things that you are into. They become our problems. So as part of the relationships that you are developing, you are going to be finding bonds, you are going to be creating friendships and so forth. So it be your responsibility to ensure that these relationships are healthy. It would. It would. Because if the relationships that you are forming wouldn't benefit you in a positive way, rather would expose you or lead you into problems, then you have a problem on your hand and you have to deal with it. So let's move forward. In this stage also, you will learn how to build strong emotional connections in this stage. You would learn how to build strong emotional connections. You will build emotional connections and bonds to help other people, and to also cultivate, that's important, a support system. Let me say this to all of us before we move forward. There are two things that must be in your life, two major things: resources and support system. Especially support system, very important for your life. So that means when you decide to build a relationship, because intimacy is not necessarily restricted to sexual activities, let me put it that way, or romance. I want to be clear on that. intimacy is not necessarily restricted to romance or sexual activities. No. Don't let anybody fool you. Intimacy is not restricted to sexual relationships or romance. Intimacy has a lot more to do with different things than sexual relationships or romance. A lot more. So that means, in other words, if you are building a relationship, whether it's intimacy, sexual, or just family or cultural, or whatever relationship you want to term it, the question that should be at the back of your mind is this relationship going to help me serve as a support system? These are questions that you should be asking, because they also form part of your criteria of why you should even engage into relationships with people. Is this going to serve as a support system for me? What emotional bonds can I have with this relationship? Is it a positive one, or so forth? Will this break me? Will this help me? Will this support me? Will this guide me? Stop restricting your relationships to just being part of a group because you like this, or you want to try the newest thing, or you want to be part of the newest groups, or you feel like you must have friends, or you must be part of the clique, or you must go this place, or you must do that. It can't be that way. It cannot be that way. You are setting yourself up for failure. So also, as part of the expectation in this time also, you would also have to get to the point wherein you look at developing strong emotional bonds to help secure yourselves, protect yourself, in other words, people that will protect you and so forth, and in the word, and also in this stage, you want to also, or you will, form intimate bonds. In this stage, you experience, let me put it to you in the simplest form, your heart will be broken. You will break other people's heart as well. You would hurt people. People would hurt you. Let me say it that way. Let me say it again. In this stage, you would hurt people. People would hurt you. You would gain some. You would lose some. In this stage, you would get happy moments. You would also have sad moments. In this stage, what to expect? Some of you will become socially isolated. Some of you will have priorities. You will decide where you want your life to go and where you do not want your life to go in this stage. So this stage, like I said earlier, is a very, very big stage, but it has a lot to do with your life and also determine where you go on finally. Imagine from 18 to 40 years, and let me put it in the Liberian way, that's small time. That's about what, 22 years of your life. Just imagine. So a lot of things would happen in this stage. I want us to keep that in mind. A lot of things would happen in this stage. A lot of things I expected to happen in this stage. Don't be surprised. This is how life is. A lot of things will happen in this stage. But then the question that becomes, that most people might ask, what is actually termed as intimacy? What do we mean when we say intimacy? Because once you hear the word intimacy, for some people, actually it runs to them as sexual or romance. So let's look at different things that has to do with the word intimacy, because it's one word, but it's a big word. Intimacy actually requires being able to share parts of yourself with other people, as well as the ability to listen and to support other people. Let me put it that way. So that is intimacy. When you hear about intimacy, it means you will share your life, yourself, with other people, but you will also listen and support other people. So how does that translate to all of us as human beings? Intimacy in this context could mean your children. Most people sometimes don't even know that they have intimacy with their children. how you share your life with your children, how you share those bonds and those connections with your children. But you will also have to listen to them though, and you have to support them. Intimacy also means your family, your close friends, your besties, your trustees, people that you trust. But it could also mean someone that you are in a romantic relationship with, which is one of the most common ones. Being intimate also means that at some point in your life, you would have to also engage into sexual activities. And once you engage into sexual activities, it means you will be forming intimate emotional connections. Let me put it that way. And so it's important for you to also choose on that side of your life, not only sexual intimacy that you'll be getting into, but you will find bounds and closeness. Again, in this context, you also have to know who you are getting involved with, such as what connects you to that person, what are things that you look forward to. And let me say this I know this will sound a little controversial and uncomfortable for some people, but let me say this to all of us. Intimacy in this context does not necessarily mean it will lead to marriage. Because I know some people, you are so set in stone in your head that once you get involved with someone, you automatically marry them or the person who would marry you. That becomes the fantasy and the expectation in your head. And so once that expectation has not been met, it poses a problem or a threat for you going forward. Let me say it again. Intimacy might not necessarily lead to marriage. Let me say that again. If your pastor sprinkle oil on your head in the church, let me speak the real library English. If the pastor sprinkle oil on your head in the church and say you will get married because you had an intimate relationship with someone, to that person, that pastor lied to you or that imam lied to you. They didn't say the truth. It's a lie. Let me say it again. It's a lie. Because then, if we're to go down your intimate life or your romantic life, that means you should have been married to all of the people you got involved with sexually. So you see, these are realistic facts that we have to come to terms with. We have to make sure that we're keeping those in mind and we're having that into consideration. I want to really take my time. And again, we might not finish this today. We'll probably finish it next week. But I want to ensure that this conversation is held a little deeper, a little not in a rush mood, but we dive into it. So yes. Then now, since it will lead to closeness, then that means you have to start thinking about people you want to bring in that closeness, in that close space of yours, because it could also put you at risk. Let me put it that way. It makes you vulnerable, whether you're a man or you're a woman. It makes you vulnerable. Getting sexually or romantically intimate with someone is one of the most vulnerable times anybody can ever be in their lives at that time. It's one of the most vulnerable times of our lives, whether you like it or not. And it's also one of the times that people build one of the most intimate emotional connections of their entire lives, whether it's man or it's woman. Let me put it that way. It's one of the times you build one of the most emotional, intimate connections of your entire life. So it's critically important that you are careful as to who you bring into that. It's been debated that from a spiritual context, those of us who are spiritual, religious, or so forth, that sexual activities, they are more than just, going and, undressing yourself and sleeping with someone. There's more connection to it. There's more tied to it. So you would hear some Christian use the word soul tie or so forth. It's a connection that sometimes you don't let go of for the rest of your life. Let me say it again. These are important conversations that we're having maturely. So this is where, when that emotional connection is disrupted, it impacts your life for the rest of your life. Some of you, and at times, it even dictates how you would act, how you function, how you behave for the rest of your life. This is why rape, sexual molestation, abuses, and so forth are considered very seriously in other cultures, in other places, because people are destroyed and they go on with this. So, but also intimacy does not necessarily mean to be with a sexual partner. People can also get intimacy from friends and loved ones. Let me say it that way too, so we can have a balance here. It's important for us to know that you can be intimate with your father and your mother, but not in a romantic form. You can be intimate with members of your family, not necessarily in a romantic way or in a romantic form. That is so possible. So again, intimacy is very big, and it has the ability to impact our lives at different levels and at different stages. So intimacy could also, for other people, it could mean, caring for other people. It's very essential. I mean, it's necessary to meet the needs of other people. But at some point in an intimate relationship, then it has to be reciprocal. It has to be reciprocal to the point wherein when you give all of these different intimacy or so forth, then you have to also get to the point wherein you will get it back. That's what that reciprocal means. It means it will be given back to you. And when those expectations are not met and when it's not given back, then it leads to a lot of different things. It leads to tiredness. It leads to emotional, whether that depression, frustration, isolation, anger, disappointments, and it starts to have an effect and a toll on you as an individual, on your body, on your system, on who you are. It starts to play on you. So intimacy in itself is big. It's very, very big. And it's a big portion of our lives, because when you have an intimate relationship with people, whether from a romantic standpoint or not, these people can also serve as a support system that can go a lifelong to support you, to help you, so that even when you get older, one of the expectations would be, because you had an intimate relationship with your children or with your child, the expectation will be it will be reciprocated for that child to take care of you. So you see how intimacy go a long way. Why it's a big factor of our lives. Even with people, the way we relate to people, the way we work with people, the way we help people and so forth, providing services and other things shows a sign of intimacy with what you are doing. Even with your jobs, the way you provide services and whatever it is. But let's look at the last part. Part of being intimate also is also being able to establish a strong relationship, which involves being able to commit for a long period of time. So I'll give you an example. And this example might be a little, it will be to some extent relatable. So let's take, for example, people look for something we call loyalty in friendship. They look for that in friendship. People look for reciprocals in friendship, such as But then there is also this question of that you have to think about. If everyone has the same problem with you, you have a problem. That's one. But on the flip side, there's also that we also need to think about, also have to look into also is, I'd like you to imagine today you are friends with this other group. Tomorrow you're not friends. The same group that you are not friendly with, we see you friendly with them tomorrow. Day after tomorrow, you are not friends with this other group, you are friends with the next group. We can check your life pattern or your lifestyle to even see where you've maintained a long, consistent relationship with another human being. All of the relationships are temporary. They're inconsistent. They're wishy-washy, or they're flip-flopping. So that speaks volume of you as a person. And you have to think about that. You have to think about it. You have to think about it. You have to think about people who are like that. Where is their mindset? And where are these people heading in terms of intimacy? Because we understand that, yes, people would leave relationships, but let me put it this way, this is not personal to anyone. Don't confuse us. 3 weeks ago, we saw you with a babe on Facebook. Very good, no problem. Everybody's happy with you or for you. Less than 3 months, we're seeing with another babe. Why are you carrying us through all these emotional roller coaster and trying to confuse us? And some of the excuses, it is your right to date or it's your right to be with whoever you want to be with. But there is so much inconsistency here and lack of stability that we have to question when it comes to the issue of intimacy as to your level of consistency. Even with our relationships with people. Today, the same group that you used to curse, that you used to fight against, you are with that same group, and the group that you were in that were causing the other group, you have neglected that group. The after tomorrow, you are forming a new group. You see, it shows problem, imbalance in your life. So there is something called, and those of you who are science nurses or maybe medical practitioners, you will understand this, or even as human beings, you will understand this. It's called homeostasis. Homeostasis means, in other words, having a balance. And yes, we as human beings, we must have a balance in our lives. Even those of us who are Christians, and I believe some Muslims, it's in religious context of balance. We must have a balance, which means good things will happen to you, bad things will happen to you too. That's life. Which also means, earlier on, like I said, you will lose some and you will gain some. Nothing wrong with that. But you can be inconsistent so much in your intimate relationships up to the point wherein you keep on hurting yourself, thinking that you are saving yourself or compensating for the next thing. Let me say this, and I'll say this from a therapeutic standpoint. It's okay for you to give yourself time to heal. It is okay. You cannot live a life and be in competition with yourself. And the way I would know that you are in competition with yourself is you would always feel that you are not enough for yourself. You have to be in competition with someone, or you have to be part of something to feel relevant. As part of intimacy also, and we'll talk about it very soon on the next slide here. You have to understand that intimacy, first of all, starts with you. Many of us, our problems is we have not even discovered ourselves to even be intimate with ourselves. Let me put it another way. You can never, ever be intimate with anyone or any group unless you get to the point wherein you are intimate with yourself enough to understand yourself and know yourself. Because you would understand your self-worth, your self-value. You would understand where you need to be, at what stage of your life you need to be there, and when you need to leave. And so these are part of things that would affect our mental state. So I'll give you an example. When you move from one, whether that intimate emotional relationships or casual professional relationship, when you just bounce around, it becomes a problem for you as a human being. Imagine people having problem with just seeing you on Facebook every 2 weeks with a new babe. Or in public. And you have to justify to them that it is your life. You can choose who you want to be. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But it speaks volume of where your mind is. It is your choice. Yes, you can make that choice. But the question also is, since we're not in your head, what we see tells us exactly where your mindset is. So yes, so again, I'll go back. Intimacy is not necessarily sexual activities. Intimacy will not necessarily lead to marriage. Let me say that again. It will not. It will not necessarily lead to marriage. Forming intimacy means you have to set a criteria, you have to set a bar, you have to set expectations. You also have to set a perimeter for you, not necessarily for the next person. I can't overemphasize this. When you set criteria, when you set boundaries, when you set any rule and regulation, it is for you, it is not for the next person. Stop trying to force people to fall under that rule. So let's take, for example, let me give you this before we move forward to the next slide. Let me give you this example. If one of your criteria is to be with a Christian man, maybe that a religious man, let me not use Christian, a religious man, then look for a religious man. Don't pick a DJ and try to make him a religious man. You're wasting your time. You're wasting resources and energy. You are going to give yourself a hard time. Let me say it again. If one of your responsibility also is maybe you are physically attracted to guys with muscles, stop looking at people in the gym. Don't be looking at skinny guys and say when you get in there, you'll work together to go to the gym. If he is not interested in that, that was your criteria you set. Now you have to look at people that meet those criteria. What do we do most of the times, especially when it comes to romantic or intimate relationships? We want to grab people and shift them into what we want. It doesn't work that way. The same way how when if you were to ask a female right now, what kind of man is she looking for? What is she looking for in a man? They print a picture. Some of them would print a picture of a man that you see on TV that does not really exist. That's illusion. That's delusion. Stop it. Get to terms with the reality and the facts. You are looking for a sexy man with 6 packs, that got a nice house, that got 6-figure jobs, that got no children. The man should be between the ages of 18 to maybe 35. A man that that y'all will just be traveling and y'all get different. Listen, wake up. Stop being a fool and stop fooling around. Get to terms of reality. Most of the times, those men do not exist. So you are on a hunt for the rest of your life that you can get, and you keep disappointing yourself, and you get mad that you cannot, those expectations cannot be met because your expectations are not realistic. They're not realistic. You can find those men on TV, in the movies. Yes, you can find them, no problem. You can read about them in magazines, in storybooks, in other things. Yes, you can. In reality, they don't exist. They do not exist. They don't. So you see the difference where you start now to have all of these imbalances in your relationships because you are not focusing and being realistic. You are not. And it poses a threat and a problem for you, not necessarily for the next person. Not necessarily for the next person. I've heard some people say, oh, well, me, I will take anything, any man God gave me. Well, let me say this to you. Let's hold on first of all. Let's hold on that first of all. For those of you who are religious people, God doesn't give anybody any man anymore. That's not truth. God does not give anybody any man. No, that's not truth. There is no man sitting somewhere waiting for you where God gave him for you. No, that is not truth. You need to wake up. Same thing with women. That is not truth. Second of all, when you say these things, anything, any man God bring my way, I will take it. You set no expectation though. A few days ago, I asked my son a question. I said, what do you want for your birthday? And he says to me, anything. The question is, what is anything? Because anything is nothing. So the question becomes, what is anything? So if you say anything God gave you, anybody God bring your way, you would take. So that means you're saying, in essence, if God brings a criminal your way, you would take that criminal. A rapist away, you would take that rapist. A loser away, you would take that loser. An abuser away, you would take that abuser. At what point do you get in the line of intimacy to set your own perimeter, set standards, set guides that you will say, I'll follow this. This is what I want. This is what I'm looking for. Now, even if you don't get what you're looking for, what is close to what you're looking for that is realistic? Because you might always not get everything you need in a human being. No, that is not truth. But what are some realistic expectations that you can set and work with so that you don't become disappointed and start to have problems? Another problem that we are having in our mindsets is when it comes to intimacy, some of us do not grow up. Let me say this to you. If you are in the country and you are 18 years old and you still live with mommy, you're past 18 years old, you still live with mommy, you still live with daddy, you still live in the house or whatever it is, no problem with that. And you have your papers, you can work, and so forth. I want to say to your mommy and your daddy, they must tell you to get a job. You have to start preparing them. It's part of intimacy. Same thing goes to the men and the women. Remember now, intimacy or having emotional connections or bound should not make you blind. Let me say it again. It should not make you blind to reality. I told somebody a few days, they came for a counseling session. I told him, I said, an African person, I said, everything she said that day in the entire counseling session was love, 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 love. And I said to her, I said, when you make dinner at night, I love you can make at night. She said, no, that food we can eat. I said, so you see, Yes, there is love, but you don't eat love. So part of the problems you are having now in your relationship is the fact that you feel drained because there is no help. It is a problem. From the beginning, you didn't set the standard that you wanted somebody that has a job. You thought eventually when you bring this broke man in your house, who is a grown man, older than you, you thought by working overtime, 2-3 jobs, and keeping him in the house meant you were in love. What you are doing to yourself, essentially, you are hurting yourself because you will become useless to him, because when you should have done, imagine, you have to do 5 days a week, 12 hours each day. What time will you have to get intimate? Because you're tired, you're a human being. When you have those 2 days off, you have to clean up around the house and clean up. He sits all day, talk to his boys on the phone, smoke hookah, spend the money he's not working for anyways. Well, I know that's watch TV, waste resources. It brings nothing to the table, but you are in love. And so the fight started to come, or will start to come, when there is all of this happening and you are tired, you can't compensate in certain area, then he would start to look to certain area to compensate as well. Somebody would say also, well, that men, I don't care what you do, whatever it is. Given, but the truth of the matter also, you must create a balance in your personal lives where you have time for yourself. If not so, the same man that you're protecting, the same man that you think you're keeping in the house, the same woman that you think you're keeping in the house, you're protecting or whatever, guess what? What happens later on? You could even die for stress, work overload without having a break, and leave that man there, or that woman and somebody else will be with them. So you're protecting nothing. So that's part of intimacy or whatever it is. Part of intimacy also, because it has to be reciprocal, even your children, when they reach a certain age, you have to give them certain responsibilities. They have to be responsible. So in making your decisions, we're not here to tell you what to do, but at least make some responsible decisions. So the question becomes now, and most people might ask, so then how do we build this intimacy though? Because it has to be built. Let me put it that way. Intimacy has to be built. Intimacy is not something that falls from the sky. For those of us who, it has to be built. Let me say it again. Whether it is with family, it is with friends, intimacy must be built. It has to be built. So then the question is, how do we build intimacy? Let me put it this way. First thing first. Let me put it out there. Intimacy, especially from a romantic standpoint, is not necessarily built when you get sexually involved the first time you meet. No. I'm not saying if that's what you choose to do, you can do it. I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. But again, I'll say it's not necessarily built on the first time. One of the first recommendations for building intimacy is communication. Sometimes we overlook communication, and in most cases, but communication has the ability to open up, especially when you're listening to one another, when you're communicating with one another. Somebody said to me one time, one of the nurses said to me, one of the first senses that you get, and we said this on here before, think about it, one of the very first senses that anyone develops is your hearing. One of the last senses that leaves you before you die is also your hearing. So what that means, in other words, is it has to start with communication. That's why in the modern world or in the Western world, on TV and in movie, Even in America, in other places, the culture in America is women don't normally rush to give their number out. Part of the reason for that is they're simply people don't pay attention to these things. They're simply trying to tell you, I'm not trying to open that door for communication. Because communication has the ability for someone to walk into your entire life for the rest of their life and also walk out. So you want to be careful as to the communications you send. Also, starting communication helps build intimacy. Now, I am not saying intimacy should be built on phone sex, video chat sex, and all of these things. Listen, I think one of the major problems we've had, most people have restricted intimacy to sexual activities. And that is just a minute portion though. Because when you get involved sexually, what's next? You see, how long does that even last? What does that supposed to mean? What do you build after that? What is the level of communication that you are having? Because it solidifies things. And even in your communications, there are things that you pick up. And that's why you have to pay attention from both ends. There are questions that you must ask. There are things that you must talk about. Not necessarily you come here just saying, you know, I love you. What have video chat now? Oh, you go into the bathroom? Let me see you now. Send me a picture now. Listen, that's not how you build. That's not how it's built in communication. So what's done essentially, your whole romantic intimacy is built around, in your communication, is built around sexual activities. You have nothing else to offer. You don't talk about no professional plans. You don't talk about no future plans. You don't talk about how you can compensate one another. You don't talk about the qualities of the person that you are talking to that even brought you to one. These conversations are not help. You don't talk about your expectation, what you look forward to. These things are not help. These conversations are not help. So it becomes a problem. So now, when the thing on which your communication is built, in order to, your intimacy is built, or your communication is built, which is sexual activities, is no longer available, then everyone is stuck. Everyone is stuck. Where do you go next? Because what built up your communication, what your communication was surrounding around, was immaterial things. Let me say it again. And I will say this, not in a disrespectful way, but in a respectful way. Anybody can have sex with anybody. That is not the root of intimacy. No, that's not truth. Don't let nobody fool you. Even with our parents and with friends, what are the communications we are having with our parents? What questions are you asking your parents? What are the questions you're asking your parents? When was the last time you ever asked your parent, if something happens to you, what do you want me to do? What is the next step? When is the last time you asked your parent, what are they on? What do they have? What are the life insurance or other things? When was the last time you asked your parent about their roots? What are some challenges that they face in the family? Because maybe there is no medical record. When is the last time you asked the person who you were with? I know this will sound crazy because most times we don't talk about this. Are there any history of mental health issues in your family? You're not being disrespectful. You're asking, because if you're going to have children or child by that person, we said this here before, not that you could be exposed to that. When's the last time you ever asked the person who you're talking to, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What is your 5-year plan? Not necessarily marry you. Not necessarily, because most of the questions that are being asked or the communication that are being held is, when we're moving in together, when you marry me, when you engage me, You know? So everything is built just around temporary impression, temporary things. So that in itself become a problem. But let's see some of the things we can do. And we'll close off for here. We'll continue next week. Let's see some of the things we can do to build intimacy. One of the very first things, apart from communication, you can do is have something we call self-disclosure. Let me say it again. Self-disclosure. Self-disclosure is very important because it's about you. We'll do this and do one more slide, and we'll close up for today. Today, we are only focused on intimacy. Next week, we'll focus on isolation. Self-disclosure is very important. So what does self-disclosure mean? Because I know once the words came out of my mouth, some people might say, now who can go tell somebody about a past so that you can use it against me or so forth. I'm not telling you about my past. What does self-disclosure mean? So self-disclosure involves sharing part of yourself with other. Sharing part of yourself with other while still maintaining a strong sense of self-identity. So let me give you a typical example. Let me give you a typical example of a self-disclosure. In public, I've always said this. I've always said it. One of the self-disclosure I have is this. I don't lie for anybody. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to lie for you. I'm not going to lie for you. Don't recruit me to lie for you. It's not going to happen. I'll tell you straight up. I don't play like that. I'm not going to drink. Self-disclosure. I'm letting you know straight off. Whether you're my friend, whether we're involved intimately, whether... So you see what I'm doing? Self-disclosure. I'm letting you know what's going on. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to smoke. More likely, so I'm not going to go to the clubs. We're not going to do that. If that's what you want to do, I can respect that, bon voyage. But I'm not going to do that. So you see what you're doing. You are letting people know what you are not going to do, but you're respecting what they want to do as well. What we don't do, we don't have some of these self-disclosures. Now, another thing also that could be self-disclosure is people are involved with people intimately. It's okay for you to tell that person you used to talk to their friend. Stop keeping that as a top secret, because when that guy finds out, it could be a problem. One will say also, oh, but I'm alive and I'm a past, and you can't judge me on my past. Well, if you're not even comfortable talking about your past, that means your past in itself maybe is shady or it's shameful. The fact that you yourself, you're embarrassed to talk about it. Oh, you can't judge me on my past. Okay, then let's talk about it. Since it's so much of a past. So you see, some of these self-disclosures, they're very important. In any relationships, in any given relationship, you must have them. I know some people might not like it, but you must have them. You are not having them necessarily because somebody asking you. Sometimes they don't even need to ask you. Bring it up and talk about it. Let people know what you will do or what you will not do. Same thing in a romantic relationship. Self-disclosure. If you're not comfortable with certain things, tell them you're not comfortable with it. Stop allowing it to go further before you start to bring it up. Stop. If you are not comfortable with the person that you're with smoking, tell them, say, I'm not comfortable with smoke. I didn't know you could smoke, but I'm not comfortable with it. It doesn't mean they will not smoke. Let them go somewhere else and go smoke. Self-disclosures are important. Talk about things. It's okay for you to talk about your family if you want to, if you feel comfortable. When you form part of a group, tell the group. Tell them what's going on. Tell them what's up. Tell them what's going on. Tell them what's up. Tell them what you will tolerate and what you will not tolerate. Another thing is, also having some important conversation about the future. Again, most times, some people don't know how to have these conversations. They project the will, especially in our African setting. These are some of the comments they will make. You know, I've gotten some of these comments and I laugh sometimes. So when you marry me now, so when we're moving in, wait now, we've been talking for 2 years now. The question becomes, why if that person is not ready to get married, what do you do? Do you leave them, even though you are emotionally connected to them, to go find somebody that you want to marry to because maybe your best friend or your homegirl getting married? I'm saying this to say that these are things that we do to even undermine ourselves in our intimate relationships with people. But more importantly, we have never been able to identify ourselves in these self-relationships. We just go by the flow. We come in with no plan. Such as even when you are in a relationship, how does that benefit you? And when I say benefit you, I'm not saying from a monetary standpoint. In other words, I'm not saying go be asking for money. Because some women, that's all they talk about. How does that benefit? You know, what didn't give me? What didn't do for me? Say, what didn't give me? What didn't do for me? Say. So here's the question: what are you doing for him? What are you doing? You think coming and having sexual activities? That's it. What are you doing? What are you doing for him? What? You see? So when these questions start to be asked, they will become a problem. What are you doing for me? Say, what are you doing for him? Say too. So think about it that way. What are you doing for him? Well, someone will say, well, but he get me. Oh, well, you get him too. Because both of you get involved with sexual activities. One person is not benefiting or the other people, or the other person. So in essence, if we really want to look at it for true, if we want to be requesting him to pay you or whatever it is, then we'll be looking at prostitution. But that's a side point. We'll be looking at prostitution. We'll be looking at exploitation. Because nobody forced you to go and sleep with him. When you start asking for, sometimes it has to be more than that. How can this person help take me to the next level? How can I benefit from the long term, such as even when this thing does not work, I have some kind of benefit, I have something that has enhanced me as a person, such as, okay, maybe I can be with a man and I go to school and get my nursing degree, or I go to school and advance myself. Maybe I can be with this man, or we can be together and we can work. I can get a house for me and the children. Long-term things that would enhance you. What can I learn from this person? How does this change my life from negative to positive? Is this person coming in my life for me to be cussing all on Facebook and misbehaving, or are they helping me to keep me at bay? And what's coming up? Are they helping me with my children? Maybe I met this person, they never had children, or they had children, but we're together. Slow down. Let me put it that way. Slow down. How can I be of a blessing to my parents? What can I do for my parents? That's because I have an intimate relationship with them. How can I help my parents? They're older now, or they're getting older. What can be done? Should they move in with me so that I can compensate from that part and help them? Is that, things like that. But it can just be always wanting you to benefit or whatever it is. So self-disclosure is good. Let me go with the last slide here. What are some of the benefits of intimacy? Because let me just be very frank with you, intimacy got benefit. Intimacy got benefit. I'll say that to you, it got benefit. And again, intimacy not in a context restricted to sexual activities. Please. Intimacy has benefit. Big benefits. Being intimate can also bring you to a close romantic relationship. And it can also help you have a deep, meaningful connection that you might not have. It can also help you endure connections with other people. It helps you build positive relationships with family and friends, and a stronger one. Now, if you are in an intimate relationship and that person is keeping you away from your family or keeping you away from your friends, I'm not saying good friends or positive friends. So I have to clarify this part. I don't want to just generalize it. If you're in an intimate relationship and your boyfriend or your husband or wife or significant other, whoever, or the person you're seeing or talking to, whatever you want to term it, I don't care about your term you want to use in your relationship. And that person sits there and you act the fool and you misbehave and you say the person loves you as you are, you have a problem. The relationship has a problem. Let me say it again. Any relationship you get in, one of the first expectations would be it should help take you from worse to better. That is the purpose. If that relationship will keep you stagnant, you have to start thinking about it. That I love. That's one. The second part about it, even when you are in a group, and the goal of the group is for you to go after people, for you to gossip about other people, for you to defend other people and lie about other people or for other people, even when you know the truth, you have to start questioning that group or that relationship. You have to start questioning yourself. So even in building these connections, let's say you had a good relationship with your family. So when you meet this guy, you meet this girl. First of all, they got too rude or they get too rude. They get causing all your family members, causing your mom, causing your papa. You ain't going nowhere. You start wasting your time. You can go to the biggest priest in the world or the biggest man of God, fire John Rainbow. You're not going nowhere. You and your family are a very good relationship. They were cool. So that person can in your life from one noise to another. And vice versa. Some of you, even in your relationship, your parents come in your home. You need to tell your parents to slow down. If it causes you to tell your parents, they go, I love you, mama, I love you, papa, but I'm building my own family or my relationship. Go somewhere else, or I'll put you somewhere else, and not disrespect. You'll have a conversation about it. Because you want to build healthy relationships and connections. Some of these things go a long way. Even some of the relationships we build, whether via social media or other places, you never know. You never know. These things go a long way. So you want them to be healthy. You want it to be positive. Now, in our community, in our Liberian community, I know we aid, abet, and breed sycophants and wrong and bad people and bad behaviors. So if Telvi, like let's say a few days ago, I got to know Telvi off the internet. She's a good friend and a co-host here as well, like me. But she called me a few days to hold me accountable and to keep me in check on something that I did that she thought was negative. And I learned so much from our conversation that day that I didn't see. But that's part of building a relationship, though. Because that's what should be done. Now, if Telvi would have told me, yeah, everything you do is cool. Yeah, Steve, I enjoy you. I enjoy it, man. Let's do it. I have to reevaluate my friendship with Telvi. I would have to. So the same thing with in any relationship. Telvi is a friend. We cool, we talk. But Telvi is able to hold me accountable. You see? Telvi, and other friends. Even my friend Sony. We're having a conversation on Sony here. He from Focus on Library. He held me accountable. And I think I said this before. One of the reasons that Sekun and I got very close was from the very onset, one of the qualities I noticed in him was the fact that he's able to keep me in check. He's able to tell me straightforward. He doesn't want to talk down the phone. He will call me and say, "Mommy, let's talk. Come to the hall, let's meet." Or you to your house, I come in there. Or wherever we are, let's meet to this place, let's meet to that place. We'll have a conversation and he will tell me where I'm going wrong and what I'm doing that's wrong. So you see how healthy relationships are built? They're not necessarily built on praising you and saying that you are the prettiest person or whatever it is. It's okay too, to our females, friends, or females who are in a relationship. If your significant other tell you, make up now, agree with everybody, don't get personal. No, we ain't gonna kill me on them way again. If your significant other or someone in a relationship tells you, I'm not comfortable with you wearing all these short dresses and exposing all your body parts. It's okay. There is nothing wrong with that. It's not being controlling. It's voicing out their concern. Well, somebody will say, well, I'm grown. You can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me what to do. And African men, y'all let to be too controlling. Well, but you get all the men business outside there, though. You don't want the men to be concerned? Think about it. You get all the men business practically outside there. When you pass inside the men questions on dinner, some of them want people in turn and said, think about that. Don't get me wrong. There are some people that are controlling. Don't get me wrong. But when these concerns are expressed in a healthy, respectful way in a conversation, it's okay for you to look at it. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. You cannot go into a relationship as who you were and be there either worse or so. What is the purpose? I've always said this and I'll say it again, fools are not my friends. So I know that you're a fool, you gotta go. Let's keep it moving. You gotta go. As a matter of fact, I think in this stage and in my personal life, I've reached a place wherein I think I choose my friends. I can tell who are my friends. I can tell you the person are my friend. My friends don't choose me. Oh, no. No. So that means I got criteria. When you are found in the foolery area, you are not my friend. You could be an acquaintance. Hello, what's up? But you're not my friend. So, as we wind down, let's also, the benefits of doing this also, it helps people building intimacy, help people build a successful life. You navigate through life successfully. You are able to forge fulfilling relationships with other people. They can serve as resources. They can help you just these few days. And it'll be shocking, but let me say this. I was supposed to, there's a panel, some kind of panel thing that I needed to submit. There's some people on Facebook I reach out to. I asked them, I'm not going to call their names for their privacy's sake. I asked them to please help me. There were a couple of questions, a couple of things that they had to fill out. And they fill it out for me, they send it back to me. But I couldn't have done that if we didn't build relationships on social media and other places and so forth. Some of those ones I reach out to them and say, can you please help me with this? Boom. They got back to me. Yes, no problem, Steve. It'll be a pleasure. And some of them provided a professional, personal information to me on our phone because they had to. And I submitted it. And I'm grateful to them. So you see, some of these relationships that we form, they go a long way. Not for today. So it's important for you to be careful. It's important for you to be careful. You know, when I see people sharing all these funny negative things, you know. But overall, also, forming an intimate relationship play an important role to support social network, important both physical and mental health throughout. It can even help because when you have a healthy relationship, you can be healthy. You can be healthy. You can be healthy. I'll say it again. You can be healthy. Let me say it again. Healthy relationships produce healthy people. You can be healthy. A healthy relationship does not necessarily mean a romantic relationship. No. Even having relationships with your children at home and you are content. It can be peaceful. Having a healthy relationship with your parents and your family members. If you need to go and sit and have that family meeting for that thing that happened years ago, you'll go sit and have it. A family. I always feel that relief and that sense of joy when I go on the East Coast. That this weekend on the East Coast, I was there. My auntie put one or two things together, you know. She was telling me about it's just a blessing. And I'm to the house, you know, I'm laying down, you know. We might not talk on the phone every day, my family, but once I go there, I feel that I'm rejuvenated. I feel that sense of support, I hope. And my cousin was telling me, say, my man, you know, your house in Philadelphia, yeah. Everybody can go. They can come back. I don't care how old you are. You will go back to the house. I don't care what your achievement is. And you go there, my angel will treat you like you are that. I don't care. Forget your whatever title you get around here or whatever you think you know. She will cook and she will put your own soup in a bowl and she will tell you where your soup is. If she's not there, she will leave words and say that they made una soup here or that the other person una soup in your bowl. You know, it doesn't matter who you are. I feel that every time I go back Philadelphia, I feel that sense of, even if I'm popping in the house for a few hours or for a few minutes, I feel that sense of love, that foundation. You know, it doesn't have to be about money, but the connection, the cohesion. That's how it should be. And that's why the family can be the foundation. You know, she and I were lecturing, you know, or were lecturing that day, you know, on Saturday or Sunday we're lecturing. I think, yeah, Sunday. We did the horse lecturing. After I finished eating heavy, I'm calling the soup by 8. I'm not calling it by 8. After I finished eating heavy, I passed out in the couch. I came from upstairs, passed out in the couch, we're watching TV, you know, just catching up. And she was informing me how she cooked, you know, one bandi soup her mom used to like, which is my grandmom, and you know, and I know the soup very well because, you know, and I'm grateful for that. But these things, they're critically important. That feeling cannot go away. You can't beat it. Healthy relationships would help our community. Healthy intimacy will help our community. On the contrary, I can know that some people think they're healthy. When you start to pass around and share other shows where people are disrespecting people. You are enabling, you are endorsing all this negative energy, negative feedback, or whatever it is. Not only that, it's very unhealthy. sit there. I see grown women and men. Some of them over 40. Some of them under 40. Sit there and share a video where people are discussing people's children. For insignificant things. So yes, I want to stop here for today. We'll take 1 or 2 calls. Like I said, we ran late today because we had a technical problem, but I'm glad it was resolved. Just before we got on the show, we had a little technical problem, so we had to stay back in the back. So that made us to come on a little later. But let me put the number on here. For the next 5 minutes, we'll take 1 or 2 calls for your input. I'll put the number on here. Or if you have my number, feel free to call to participate. So the number is right there. Call that number. I'm not able to go into the system to get out a number right now. So call that number if you have any input, anything you would like to contribute. Feel free to call that number. And we can go into that. So I look forward to your calls for the next few minutes. I look forward to your call. I look forward to all of your call or your contribution. So yes, we want to stop here for today. And we'll recap. All right, I think I'm getting a call here. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from, please?
My name is Eudora Clee.
Who?
Eudora.
Eudora, what's your intake?
I'm calling from Pennsylvania. I'm just calling to let you know that I follow your show and it's very, very educational for our people and continuing the work of mental health. I'm in the mental health field also. Mental health is a serious thing in our community and we don't talk about it much. So thank you and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Eudora. Thanks for your contribution. All right. So we look forward to 1 or 2 more calls, and we should call it a day, considering we've been on here for a while and we have to go into other things. We look forward to your calls here. We look forward to all of your calls. Well, that's where we'll stop for today. Next week, we'll focus on a little more on isolation as compared to what we saw today, what we talked about. What isolation really, really means. And all that good stuff. So we got what? We got 2 more minutes. As we look forward to your calls. And if there is none, we would call it a day. But next week, we'll do the second part of this, the continuation of this conversation. We look forward to having you on next week. The weekend of April 15, we've announced to you that we will not be on for mental health and wellness. Will not be on for it. We've informed you on that. Tomorrow, about We're about to pull up the poster or the flyer this afternoon. Tomorrow, we are having former ambassador, current presidential aspirant or hopeful, Nathaniel Bounds. He will be on here tomorrow on SKTV at a regular time, 2 p.m. for an interview. The expectation is the interview will be relayed on one or two or a couple of radio stations in Liberia. Everything will be considered tomorrow. Tomorrow is politics. So we'll talk about everything and anything. Day after tomorrow, Sunday, we'll also have Anthony at Law Sunday. Anthony Sunday will be on here, SKTV, the same time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 6 p.m. Liberia time. Yes, I think so. 6 p.m. Liberia time. Follow us on SKTV. Counselor Sunday will be Attorney Sunday. Attorney at Law Sunday will be updating on the Asula Mita deal. And we'll be also talking about issues that are going on, abuse, gender-based violence in the country, and so forth. So let's look forward to these conversations with these people. Thank you for sticking and staying with us. We want to say thank you so much. This is how we will draw the curtains. We'll be on next Friday. Let's look to next Friday for our conversations here, as we intend to have a good conversation next Friday. Tomorrow, tune in politics. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. Stay safe and stay out of trouble. Thank you for your time. Thanks for your contribution. Share the show to those who did not have the chance to follow. Share the show, and bon weekend à tous et à tous. Bye.
Love.
Find a friend like me. Find a friend like me. If you not want betrayal, find a friend like me. Find a friend like me. Find a friend like me. If you not want betrayal, find a friend like me.
Bombe oh, find a friend like me. Bombe jene oh, find a friend like me. Find a friend like me. Find a friend like me.
Hey, see bestie. Your bestie not sweet like my bestie. Your bestie da la bestie. Find a friend like me.
I say, see bestie wanting to wealthy. Find a friend like me. I hear them say, they want me go, I say,
But they say they want me go,
I say,
Some French la oh. Some French la oh. Some French la oh. French la oh. Hey, see bestie. Your bestie not sweet like my bestie. The bestie da la bestie. Find a friend like me.
I say, see bestie wanting to wealthy. Find a friend like me. Okoro. won't step on my blessing, but God get it breaking, yeah. Okoro, they won't call it my blessing, but God get it breaking, yeah. Okoro,
Frenchie, see Frenchie, can't see Papa T Frenchie. I don't want no bad for Frenchie. I don't want no wedding Frenchie. Wangolo, 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 Wango for bestie, Wangolo, Wango for daddy, Wangolo.